In this video we're going to look at how to install DotNetNuke using the website panel. So here we are, we've logged into website panel and we are sitting at the home page of our hosting space. Before we can start, there's a few things that we need to take note of though, because we're going to need them later on in the process. The first is the name of the SQL server that we are using, and that's shown over on the right hand side. After that, we're going to need to make sure that we've got a database created to hold our DotNetNuke database, and that needs to be a SQL Server 2008 database, so we'll create one of those just now. We're going to copy the name because we're going to need to use it a little bit later on, and we're going to create a user to use that database. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to make sure that we have a valid email account set up, and we'll use this test.me at expeedhosting.com for that. So now we can actually get to installing the application, and we're going to go down to the Microsoft Web App Gallery here. Takes a bit of time to show, but this is all of the applications that you can install from website panel in sort of pretty much a one-click operation. We're looking for DotNetNuke, which is a customer management system, CMS, so we'll just click CMS there, and here we are, the list has refreshed. So we'll scroll down and we'll find DotNetNuke. Now there are a bunch of different DotNetNuke installations, basically Community Edition, which is free of charge in all the various languages, and if we go down further there'll be a Professional Edition. Now Professional Edition has more functionality, but it's also thousands of dollars, so be sure to choose the right one, and it's as simple as clicking install to get started. Okay, we confirm our selection by clicking next. The application now downloads. Now this could take a little while depending on how big the application is, so we'll come back to this once it has downloaded. Okay, so the application has downloaded. In reality it took about 2 or 3 minutes. So now we've got to start filling in the options that we need in order to make DotNetNuke run. The first option we have to choose is the domain that we want to add this onto, and we're going to choose Expeed Hosting because that's the domain that we're using. Application name needs to be blank. With the database we're going to choose SQL Server 2008, and despite the fact we actually created our own database earlier, we are going to select the option that says create new database, and then we're going to click install. Once the installation has taken place, and that really took about a minute or so, we're presented with the successfully installed notification, and what we do here, we click on launch .NET and it will open up the Expeed Hosting website, and it will take us to the .NET installation page, because although it's actually installed all the server components and whatnot, it hasn't really done any configuration yet, so it takes a little while to start the first time round. So once it does, it will display the configuration pages. Now the application has started, all of the bits and pieces have been built, we're now able to configure the wizard. It took probably about a minute or so for this page to come, so if it's sitting there chugging away for a while, don't do too much. So now we need to go through and answer all of the questions. We're basically going to go for a typical installation, really. There's nothing really more exciting than that, so we'll go next. So the next thing we get is to check the file permissions. These are all going to be exactly default, so we'll just go next here. Now we get to choose the database configuration. We need to make sure that we've got SQL Server 2005-2008 database created, and in the name of the server we need to remember the SQL Server that we checked the name of in the very first step. In our instance it was SQL6, so the address then becomes sql6.expeed.com.au, and very importantly we need to put the port number on the end, so we've got comma 8484. The database is the name that we copied in step 1, and we need to turn off integrated security, which will then prompt us to put in a user ID, which is the one that we created at the beginning, and the password for that user. Run as DB owner needs to be checked, and the object qualifier needs to be left blank. We can now hit next, and it should connect to the database that we have created. So now that we've logged into the database, it goes away and sets up all the scripts, and this just takes a little while for it to do its thing, and once it is done, DotNetNuke is then installed. So we'll just pause the video while it does this. Once it's finished, we'll see that the box fills up with information, and importantly at the end, installation of database complete. We can now click next. So here we can set up the name of the super user. We'll just change this to root so we know what it is. We'll give it a password. This is going to be our user that can do everything. Email address is the one that we had set up from before, we checked. So this is why you need to have all these things set up before you start. And then we can start putting in the website title and stuff like that. Yep, language is absolutely fine, and then we'll do next. So now we've got our sample site available to us. There's just one more step before we can get into really configuring the site, and that is to make sure that the email settings are correct so that it can send emails correctly. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the host menu on the top here, and we're going to go to host settings. Into the advanced settings tab, and we'll scroll down to SMTP server settings, which we'll expand, and we'll make sure that we have the Expeed mail server in here, which is mail.expeed.com.au, and we make sure that we are set to anonymous, and then you're good to go. Okay, so that's how you install DotNetNuke.